हेलो बच्चों, आज हम जानेंगे ट्रांसपोर्ट इन प्लांट. So what is transport in plant? Transport in plant means it consider anything that transport from one place to another place that have a definite purpose. As like in plant, many molecules are transport. These molecules have a definite purpose that work in plant and have definite function. So in a plant, the molecule that transfer in plant is one is called, let's consider one is called water molecule, water, inorganic acid, inorganic minerals, mineral, and food. These are transported through this plant. The transportation occur in plant is two types. One is called short distance transport, another is known as long distance transport. So what is short distance transport? Short distance transport is that, let's consider here is a cell, here is a leaf. This leaf consists of different types of cells. In these cells the transportation occur nearly of cells, so this is known as short distance transport. If we consider long distance transport, imagine from the soil, the water reach the peak of the soil, and during photosynthesis, the food prepared in leaf, but that reach into the root also. How these are happen? Through a long distance transporting system are present. So what exact thing present? I will discuss. So connect with me. So transport in plant is two types we know, short distance and long distance. Short distance and long distance. In short distance transportation, this transportation occur through different processes known as diffusion, facilitated diffusion, active transport, cytoplasmic streaming, and long distance transport that occur through root pressure, root pressure, transpiration pool, transpiration pool, and the system through which that transportation occur is known as xylem and phloem. While xylem that transport water and mineral, while phloem that transport food and mineral. So next is transport. Next is means of transport. As we know, this is through short distance. So diffusion. The first is called diffusion. So what is diffusion? Diffusion is the process in which the molecule, this molecule may be gas, liquid or solid, that transport from higher concentration to lower concentration, higher concentration to lower concentration. Here is a vessel and B vessel. Let's consider here higher concentration, then reaches the lower concentration. And here another thing, gaseous transport, so only diffusion, not other, only diffusion. So we know, let's consider if I am spraying any perfume, after some time that reach whole room, as like or diffusion also transport through the plasma membrane. So according to this concept, diffusion do not depend upon living system specially, means it is occur through living system and non-living system both. Next is facilitated diffusion. So what is facilitated diffusion? Facilitated diffusion is the transport of molecule from higher concentration to lower concentration as like diffusion. But the thing is different. Here it contains a specific protein in the plasma membrane. So it contains the plasma membrane a specific protein, so it depend upon living system, and another thing, it do not require any energy, but depend upon living system because the protein composed in plasma membrane. So why when the transportation occur, hydrophobic, this one is hydrophobic, this is hydrophilic. So Let's consider, we know plasma membrane is hydrophobic due to contain lipid molecule. Any molecule that come from hydrophilic, let's consider any molecule hydrophilic and the plasma membrane hydrophobic. If this molecule want to transport this plasma membrane, this cannot transfer because due to repulsion. So it need a carrier protein to transport into or enter into the cell. So it need a protein. So in facilitated diffusion we see a protein. Next is active transport. So what is active transport? Active transport means the transportation occur through lower concentration to higher concentration, lower to higher concentration. And let's consider one of the sodium potassium pump, and it act as a pump like system. Means if we take, imagine if I'm taking a substance from ground to one of the peak point, then what happen? We need some energy. Means active transport or during active transportation, energy are required as in form of ATP, and also it is involve proteins. And another thing, it is depend upon living system because this protein involved with plasma membrane involved. So here is the how molecules transport in active transport. This is a proton pump. Proton means H plus pump. Through this, it using ATP. Next is, this is a, through this we understood what exactly happened. Let's consider, here I am situated in A, here I am situated and taking a large stone. In a large stone, this is up, this is down. From up, I release, from the peak of the point I release this stone. After some time, this stone reach the down point, reach the down point. So here no energy required, and that is transfer from high to low, and this is known as downhill. This is called downhill. And the next, let's consider if I want to reach this peak point. If I want to reach this peak point, I am going from down to peak, down to peak. For the down to peak, I require so much energy in form of ATP. I require energy, and the transfer from low to high, and reach the point up. So it is known as uphill. Why I will discuss this thing? I will discuss due to, we know in a diffusion and facilitated diffusion these three things are happen. But in case of active transport these are happen. So I will discuss. You remember as like through this example. Next, different parameters. Next is different parameter that affect diffusion, facilitated diffusion, active transport. So which exact parameter that affect this thing or this transportation process I will discuss. So first is concentration. If this concentration in diffusion, we see higher concentration to lower concentration transportation. In facilitated diffusion, this is also higher concentration to lower concentration. But we see in active transport, this is lower concentration to the higher concentration. And next is energy. We see the energy only involved in active transport. But third, transfer. This is downhill, this is downhill. But the active transport shows uphill process. Next, protein. Protein involved in facilitated diffusion and active transport, but not involved in diffusion. This is most important thing. So in terminology of protein, I will discuss 2 to 3 points. One is called inhibitors. So what is inhibitor? Inhibitor means in that inhibit or block. How block? We know protein are blocked by some inhibitor, because protein, we know protein composed of amino acid. This amino, if we block this amino acid, then what happen, these proteins are not work properly. So if we add any, let's consider this is a protein, if we add some inhibitors, if we add some inhibitor, then this will block. If this will block, it will not work as like, let's consider if its work is water transport, but if we block this transportation, then water will not transport through this process, as like it is also affect active transport. So protein inhibitor affect facilitate diffusion, active transport, but it do not affect diffusion. Next is saturation. So what is saturation? Saturation means, we know protein composed, we know protein are composed. So let's consider protein have four structure. This is a protein and four structure. At a time, four molecule. Let's consider this is a four molecule of hormone are bind at a particular time, and at this particular time, this protein have no place to bind other molecule. This state is known as saturation. This saturation shown in facilitated diffusion and active transport. And next is specificity or specific. The molecule bind in facilitated diffusion is very specific, as like active transport also, but it do not in specific diffusion because it do not contain any protein. So this is all overall discussion with parameter. Next is means of transport. It is two type. One is called passive transport, another is called active transport. In passive transport, we see two types of most transportation occur. This is called diffusion and facilitated diffusion. Why? Because it do not require any energy, but it is known as active because it requires energy. And this passive transport I will discuss one by one. Which is the first process among these three processes? Which one is the first? The first process is active transport, then facilitated diffusion, then diffusion. Why? This active transport requires some protein. This protein acts as energy. This protein involves some energy. We know, as an example, if without enzyme any process occur without enzyme, then what happen, the process takes so much time. If we add some enzyme, then the process will soon completed. So active transport shows higher than facilitated diffusion because it contains proteins, and diffusion less time. Then among these three, so next is diffusion pressure. So what is diffusion pressure? If we add or increase solute, then diffusion pressure also increases. Diffusion pressure also increases. Next, this is point is membrane. Now I'm discussing membrane. This membrane consists of different proteins. These proteins are channels. These proteins are channels. Here you observe, this is a channel, this is a channel. So this channel also a protein. This channel, the function of channel transporting the molecules. These are two types. One is called open channel, another is called, here is channel is two types, open and close, open and close. So what is open channel? Open channel means, here you see this open channel, this channel always open, this is always open, but some channel have close or open, close or open as their requirement, as their requirement. So next, according to channel, another concept arises in plasma membrane. This concept we take, this is called porins. So what is porin? Porins means a pore-like structure. This is also a channel. A pore-like structure that present in the outer membrane. As like in outer membrane, we see a pore-like structure. This is present in the membrane like mitochondria, plastid, and some bacterial wall. Mitochondria, plastid, and some bacterial wall. These porins are present. So next pouring, one of the example of pouring is called aqua pouring. Example is aqua pouring. This aqua pouring is 8 types of protein composed. This aqua pouring composed of 8 types of protein. Aqua means water. You know pouring means pore like body or pore like structure of a protein. Aqua means water. Means this aqua pouring helps in transportation of water molecule. And this is happen through facilitated diffusion. Now we see here facilitated diffusion. This facilitated diffusion consists of three types of pods. One is called unipod, sympod, and antipod. Unipod, unipod, sympod, and antipod. So what is unipod? When a molecule moves across a membrane independent of other molecule, the process is known as unipod. Independent of other molecule. One molecule, let a molecule only transport independently. But sympod, both molecule cross the membrane. Both molecule A also cross and B also cross at the same direction. Same direction. Both are transport, but the direction is same. Next is antipod. They move opposite direction. Here you see A and B. A is transport. This A is transport opposite direction. B is also transport opposite direction. Next, I'm discussing plant-water relation. So, what is plant-water relation? We know how the water that transport through the root to the reach this point. This water transport through a potential energy. This potential energy of water is known as kinetic energy. Means this potential of water given by one of the energy called kinetic energy of water. So what is potential or kinetic energy? If you consider assuming this free movement of water from one place to another place, how this happen? Through the kinetic energy. Pure water have greatest water potential. This pure water have greatest water potential. Now a concept or numerical a formula arises from this thing. The potential of water or water potential is denoted as psi w, psi w, and psi s and psi p. What is psi w equal to psi s plus psi p? Because psi s is known as solute potential and psi p is called pressure potential. So if we increase solute, let water potential and solute, then what happen? Solute in a water, this is water molecule. If we increase solute, then the free movement of water that decreases, that decreases. So this, if water potential increases, if we add solute, then water potential decreases or free movement of water decreases. Also that affect pressure, also affect on water potential. So this is the concept. Osmosis. So what is osmosis? Osmosis is one of the process like a diffusion of water. Diffusion of water means osmosis also a process of diffusion. But the thing is, in diffusion we see transport of molecule like gas, solid, liquid. But here only the transportation molecule is solvent. The transportation of molecule is solvent, and this solvent, in case of we consider in plant, mostly let's consider this is water through a semi permeable membrane, through a semi permeable membrane. So let's consider a vessel. Let's consider a vessel. This is a vessel A and B. This A have higher water potential and B have a lower water potential. Why? Let's consider here is water molecular more and the solute molecules are less. Solute molecule are less, and we placed a semi-permeable membrane. Semi-permeable membrane. The higher concentration, the nature of water potential that transfer molecule from higher concentration to the lower concentration, higher concentration to lower concentration. So A vessel is higher concentration of water potential, but the B is lower concentration of water potential. So water will transfer from here to here. And this osmosis depend on pressure gradient and concentration gradient. So remember how this pressure gradient affected. If I am putting some pressure on this to stop the osmosis, then what happen? The pressure will affect on this osmosis. And how the concentration gradient affect. If we decrease or increase the solute, this affect, this provide dense or lightness to the this to the to these things. So that affect according to the increase or decrease of concentration, and through this the water potential rise or decrease. Through the water potential rise or decrease, water molecules are transportation occur from one place to another place. Next, osmotic pressure. So what is osmotic pressure? Osmotic pressure, the pressure required to stop the osmosis. And this solute concentration, if we increase the solute concentration high, the pressure also increases. We discuss, if we increase solute concentration, what the free movement of water, this free movement of water will not happen. So water potential also decreases. Osmotic pressure is equivalent to osmotic potential, but the sign is opposite. The sign is opposite. Osmotic pressure sign is positive, while osmotic potential is negative. Remember these things. So next is tonicity. So what is tonicity? One is called hypertonic, hypotonic, and isotonic. According to the cell behaves according to the surrounding environment, and the where is cell placed, that behaves, that shows flaccid condition, that shows flaccid condition, turgid condition, or no water movement. What is flaccid? Flaccid means that lose the water. Turgid means gain water and like structure. And no water means no water transfer from here to here, not external source to outside the cell. No water movement. So according to this behavior, it is defined hypertonic, hypotonic, and isotonic. So let's consider external solution more concentrated. This is the vessel hypertonic. In hypotonic, this is a vessel. This vessel contain more solute in terms of more solute. This external part contain, this vessel contain more solute. If I am placed a cell, if I am placing a cell here, then what happen? Already this contain higher solute, this contain lower solute. So water will remove here, water will remove from this cell, removes from this cell, finally shows as like shape. This condition is known as flaccid, means water loss. Second condition we see here is the external solution more dilute. More dilute means it consists of less solute. All are in terminology of solute. Less, hypo means less, hyper means more. So here less solute. This is less solute. If I am placed a cell here, then what happen? This cell take water because it is composed of high water, less solute. Take water and shows the things more turgid. So this condition is called turgid. One is called flaccid and is called turgid. Next, isotonic. Here no transport from outside, no transport from inside, so balance the osmotic pressure of cytoplasm. No movement here, no movement. Next two concept, one is called plasmolysis and deplasmolysis. So what is plasmolysis? If water removes from the cell, this condition is known as plasmolysis. What is deplasmolysis? If reversely water enter to the cell, if the condition is reverse, then it is called deplasmolysis. So this is all about discussion of tonicity, plasmolysis and deplasmolysis. Next, so you see here what is plasmolysed cell, flaccid cell and a turgid cell. Imbibition. What is imbibition? Imbibition is a special type of diffusion. It is a special type of diffusion. It is a special type of diffusion when water is absorbed by solid colloids, absorbed by solid colloid and causing them increase in volume. That this is a solid colloid absorbing water and shows volume increase. Volume increase. The example is absorption by seeds and dry woods through the endosmosis. The process normally, if you see cashew, almond or cashew, this thing absorb water through this process of endosmosis. This is also known as imbibition. Pathway of water movement in the root means we know the water that movement through the root different cells. One is called epidermis, cortex, endodermis, pericycle, and then finally reach the xylem. But the how this water that move through this root, water is movement occur through these two pathway. One is called apoplastic pathway, another is known as symplastic pathway. In apoplastic pathway, the water moves from cell wall to cell wall. And another thing, a barrier that present in apoplastic pathway, this is called Casparian strip. This barrier block the water movement in cell wall. And second thing, this is present in endodermis. This is specific question that present in endodermis, name is Casparian strip that block the apoplastic pathway. Another symplastic or symplast. Symplastic pathway is cytoplasmic connection present between cell to cell in which the water will transport. The cell to cell connection between symplastic pathway, this is called plasmodesmata. Plasmodesmata helps the transfer of water from cell to cell and then finally reach this xylem. So this is the all about concept of water movement through the root of different pathways. So same thing, this is the same thing, but this is the exact diagram. Next, mycorrhiza. So what is mycorrhiza? Mycorrhiza is the concept that transfer of water, how and mostly the concept is what is symbiotic association. What is symbiotic association? Symbiotic association is the association between in which one organism provides something and other organism provides something and they mutually serve and they mutually surviving in a condition. So one is concerned here fungi and root. This fungi or fungus provide something and root also provide something. The fungi exactly contain a fungal filament that enter the root cell and provide a large surface Due to this large surface, it absorbs minerals. So the condition is here, we know the root normally is small structure that cannot provide this thing, but we provide a large structure that absorb mineral, so this mineral with water are provided to root. After providing this fungus this thing, root provides sugar and nitrogenous compound nitrogenous based compound. So that what happen? Fungi provide water and mineral, and root that provides sugar and nitrogen compound to the mycorrhiza. So they mutually surviving. One is known as finance seed. Finance seed shows obligate association. That shows obligate association means one cannot, means finance seed cannot live without this mycorrhiza. In long distance transportation, we see that occur mostly due to transpiration pull and root pressure. These are the main factor we see, but mostly this pressure that mostly we see in small plant like grasses, but with transpiration pull that affect mostly in long distance plants. So first we studying what is root pressure. Root pressure is a pressure that create during, you see in normally if we cut a apical part of the plant, after some time if we cover through a poly bag, we see water droplet are present in this poly bag. Let's consider this poly bag is a white poly bag. We see this thing because of this is the droplets are due to one pressure created at root. This is called root pressure, and this root pressure is a positive pressure. This called positive pressure, and it is mostly found in small plants. In water at night, we see night water droplets are found in leaf due to one process known as guttation, that is mostly occur through the pressure called root pressure. That is mostly occur through the pressure called root pressure. One of the example we see that is called grasses. Next concept we see the transpiration pool. What is transpiration pool? Transpiration pool is the pooling means pool means what is pool? Pool means anything that pool. In case of in transpiration pool, we see mostly the water are pull out through the stomata in vapor form. Through the stomata in vapor form. This most condition means this condition occur when the stomata are open, and the stomata are open in daytime mostly and close at night time due to the transpiration. Why most important? This transpiration is important for the balance of all system of body of the plant. So what exact thing I will discuss? Mostly the lower surface have greater stomata. In dicotyledon plant we see the most the lower surface that contain most greater stomata, because of we see if it is present in upper surface, then transpiration pool that attract more water. If more water are attracted in vapor form, that affect the water, the affect the plant. So it is need to the presence of stomata at the lower surface, as like in monocotyledons. In monocotyledons plants we see isobilateral stomata. This isobilateral stomata means that in upper surface and lower surface both are contain same stomata. Another thing, the factor, different factors that affect the transpiration pool. So different factors, one is called external, another is known as plant factor. External factor like temperature, light, if temperature light increases, that affect stomata. How stomata? That remove water in vapor from increase in temperature and light. If the humidity and wind speed increases, the transpiration also decreases. So as like this external factor that affect transpiration. Now plant factor, number and distribution of stomata. if number if number and distribution of stomata, if number are less, also transpiration shows less. And distribution, if the stomata are present in the upper surface, then it shows higher transpiration. If it present in the lower surface, may be less than the upper surface. Next is percentage of stomata. Percentage of open stomata. Percentage of open stomata means if the stomata are closed, then what happen? Transpiration not occur. If more stomata open, transpiration shows higher rate. Water status. Water status means if water are less, transpiration also less. As like another is canopy structure. So what is canopy structure? Canopy means, let's consider this is a whole plant. Structure is as like this is not a one leaf, this is a whole plant. So if let's consider here is the sunlight reaches this point, so it is shows more transpiration, and this sunlight do not reach this point, and this point is shows less transpiration. So this canopy structure shows transpiration less or more according to this structure of the plant. Next concept is called transport in xylem. So what is transport in xylem? We see in transport of xylem one concept that in xylem the main component is known as xylem sap. This is called xylem sap. This xylem sap mostly contain water and mineral. Water with mineral. And this transport of water and mineral or mostly water occur through a process known as cohesion adhesion process. Cohesion adhesion process. So what is cohesion adhesion? Cohesion means if the water molecule are mutually attracted, then this is called cohesion. And if the surface, here let's consider this is xylem surface, this water molecule are attached to the surface, this is known as adhesion. Attraction of water molecule to a polar surface such as the surface of trachyary element. What is trachyary element? Trachyary elements mostly present in we see in xylem. This is a part of xylem. We see here, let's consider this is a trachyary element. Water molecule are attached to this part and shows adhesion, and water molecule attached is known as cohesion. And another concept called surface tension. What if the water molecule are attract to each other in liquid phase, more than that to water in the gas phase? This is called surface tension. Another is called capillarity. What is capillarity? Capillarity means, let's consider this is a large surface, this is a whole small surface. We see if it contains small surface, if we dip this pipe, let's consider this pipe is A and this pipe is B. If you dip in water this pipe, then water reaches at like higher point in A. But if you dip this pipe in this vessel, we see water reaches at this point. So this capillarity means thin tubes that water transport more to the higher length or more heights. In more heights, we see in more heights, for the moment of more heights, the xylem vessel are very thin. So this is called capillarity, and capillarity is provided by tracheids and vessel element. Remember this thing. This is provided by tracheids and vessel elements. Here we see translocation of mineral ions. So what is translocation? Translocation means transfer of mineral ions. The transfer of the most of the mineral ions are transported. Let this consider this is a root cell. This root cell consists of cells. This cell contain different types of proteins. We know this protein are helps in transportation of minerals. If this mineral are transported through active transport, means it involve energies. So second is ions transport stem to all part of the plant. If the ions are transported to the stem to all part of the plant, this is called transpiration stream. This is known as transpiration stream if these ions are transported to stem to all of the plant. Next concept, this is called chief sinks. What is chief sinks of for the mineral? Chief sinks of the mineral means we see two parts. One is called source and sink. Sink means that what is sinks? Sinks means source is a where the production occur. Sinks means where the storage occur. So these minerals are mostly stored in growing regions. In these growing regions are apical, lateral meristem, young leaves, developing flowers, fruits, and seeds. So in this part, these minerals are mostly stored. One is called senescence. What is senescence? If the plant, let's consider this is a plant. This plant contains leaves. If this leaf are dying, so this removes or remobilizing some nutrient. This leaf remobilize some nutrient to the other part that have survived, and this is known as senescence. Senescence in normal concept, that senescence is a one type of cell death during which that secrete or removes or remobilize the nutrient to the other part of the cell, so this cell are survive. Before leaf fall in deciduous plant, minerals are removed to other parts and elements are remobilized. This concept is most important. What exact elements that are removed? One is called phosphorus, sulfur, nitrogen, potassium. These elements are mostly remobilized from one dying cell to other cell. Let's consider during senescence. These minerals are transferred from dying cell to the normal cell. Another concept, calcium. This calcium are the structural component. What is structural component? As like we know, if the cell is skin composed of collagen, collagen contain carbon, hydrogen. These are also known as carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. As like calcium is the structural component we see in plant, and this is not remobilized during this. Let's consider this is senescence. We see these molecules or these elements are transferred from one cell to another cell, but calcium do not transfer. So here is the example. This sugar molecule are transported to the buds, but the concept is this is are not from this leaf. These are from, we see here, root. Means the root act as a source, but every time we see the leaf act as a source because of during photosynthesis food are produced in this particular leaf and transferred to the other part of the plant. But here the condition is different. Here we see sugar are sugar are stored in this root and transported to the other part. This is the one of the example of early spring that transport to the bud cells that act as a sink. And this concept, so phloem sap. What is phloem sap? This phloem sap consists of water and sucrose. This is the major part, but it contains other sugars, hormones, and amino acid also. But the major is, if any question asked, the phloem sap. What is phloem sap? We must consider this phloem sap is water and sucrose mostly, but it contain also this sugar, hormone, and amino acid. Another concept most important, xylem shows unidirectional and phloem shows bidirectional. So what is the unidirectional? We know water once enter to the root that reaches the one by one point of the plant at the peak of the leaf. So as like phloem may be bidirectional, maybe sometime that produce in leaf that transport to the root, maybe that leaf to the root, and sometime root to the leaf. So it is known as like we see it is not a constant manner. So it is known as bidirectional. Phloem shows bidirectional movement. This phloem are transported occur through a pressure. This is known as mass flow or a bulk flow hypothesis. So how through this mass flow and bulk flow occur, I will discuss. So first is sugar move. The first concept I will discuss load. How loading occur. Here the first sugar are synthesized through photosynthesis. After photosynthesis, this sugar are loaded to the nearer cell. This is known as companion cell. Then from the companion cell to the that store in the phloem tissue called sieve tube, that store in the sieve tube, and through a process, through a system, this is called active transport. This is known as active transport. So this active transport, we know the cell contain different types of protein. During this energy are involved. So here we see ATP are involved. ATP are involved means during phloem loading companion cell to phloem tissue of sieve tube, ATP involved through active transport. So this is the overall process of loading. Next is loading is hypertonic. So what is hypertonic? We know if the solute concentration increases, that shows hypertonicity. So tonicity is hypertonic. Why hypertonic? Solute increases but the water decreases. So what happens? The water potential, solute increases, water decreases. So water potential increases or decreases? Obviously water potential decreases. We know the decrease in water potential that attract water, because the nature of water potential that attract from higher concentration to the lower concentration. So water from nearer cell to enter to this phloem, enter to the phloem, but nearer cell is known as xylem. Nearer cell is known as xylem because xylem contain different types of water and mineral. These water are entered to the phloem. After enter to the phloem, that create a pressure, let's consider here is more phloem and here is less phloem. So from lower to higher, automatically that transfer phloem through due to pressure difference. So this is the all about discussion how what phloem that transfer from higher to lower through mass flow or a bulk flow hypothesis. Next, another amazing experiment that shows Girdling experiment. In a Girdling experiment, that remove a part of the plant so that contain phloem. After some time, we see this part of the plant shows a swelling of nature, and this swelling of nature is due to deposition of foods. And this experiment shows if we cut this part, no transportation no transportation occur. So this is the all oral discussion of transport in plant.